there's a producer I know, successful producer, I will not mention names, but his whole opinion about women on film, from beginning to end, is very brief.
It began as a rumor in the corners of independent cinema, a film too dangerous for the major studios, backed by an icon who had already been cancelled by the machine. Mel Gibson's involvement in the movement against child trafficking wasn't just about a movie. It was a collision of Hollywood's most polarizing figure with the world's most guarded secrets. As the Epstein files begin to bleed into the public record, the lines between film and reality have blurred into a single high-stakes narrative. Behind the red carpets, a different kind of production was taking shape in the shadows. The Gibson connection. The presence of Mel Gibson in the orbit of Sound of Freedom was never merely ceremonial. It was a collision of a Hollywood pariah's technical mastery with a subject matter the establishment seemed desperate to ignore. One must look past the red carpets and into the dimly lit editing bays, where the film sat in a state of purgatory for nearly 5 years to understand the gravity of this connection. While the public eventually saw a polished thriller in 2023, the DNA of the project was reshaped by Gibson's hand long before the first ticket was sold. His involvement provides a crucial bridge between the cinematic world and the grim realities of the Epstein era, functioning as a silent architect for a film that many believe was destined to stay on a shelf. Gibson's role began not as a producer, but as a technical mentor. Sources close to the production, including Tim Ballard, have confirmed that Gibson spent significant time in the editing room, applying the same visceral, unflinching eye that defined Braveheart and The Passion of the Christ. This wasn't just about cutting scenes for time, it was about the Gibson touch, a specific way of rendering suffering and sacrifice that forces an audience to look where they would normally turn away. In the editing suite, Gibson reportedly helped refine the film's pacing, ensuring that the harrowing journey of the protagonist mirrored the real-world claustrophobia of trafficking networks. By lending his expertise, Gibson wasn't just supporting a friend in Jim Caviezel. He was weaponizing his legendary skill set against a specific type of darkness that he has hinted at for decades. The timing of this collaboration is where the almost true nature of the narrative becomes most compelling. The film was shot in 2018, the same era when the legal walls were finally beginning to close in on Jeffrey Epstein's global enterprise. As Gibson was helping to shape a narrative about children being moved through Colombian jungles, the real-world dossiers of Little St. James were being prepared for a reckoning. This synchronicity created a palpable tension within the industry. When the Disney-Fox merger occurred in 2019, Sound of Freedom was effectively buried, a move that many, including the film's backers, interpreted as corporate suppression of a dangerous topic. During this period of silence, Gibson's support remained a constant, providing the project with a sense of underground legitimacy that resonated with an audience tired of sanitized, studio-approved narratives. Beyond the technicalities of film grain and sequence, Gibson's connection extended into the operational. Ballard famously recounted how he approached Gibson for more than just cinematic advice, seeking financial assistance for actual rescue missions. In one specific instance, during the early days of the conflict in Ukraine, Gibson reportedly provided the seed money for a mission to extract orphans from a war zone. This crossover from the simulated rescue on screen to the literal extraction of children in a geopolitical crisis blurred the lines between Gibson the filmmaker and Gibson the advocate. It suggests that, for him, the film was not an isolated creative endeavor, but a public-facing front for a much broader private war against exploitation. This level of commitment is what fueled the viral belief that Gibson was holding Epstein tapes, or secret documentaries. While his publicist has consistently denied the existence of a specific 4-part Epstein expose, the reality of Gibson's hands-on work with Ballard's team provides the truth that makes the rumors so persistent. People believe the rumors because the documented reality is already so intense. A legendary director helping edit a banned movie while simultaneously funding private intelligence missions to save children. In the world of high-stakes disclosure, Gibson's shadow looms large not because of what he has said on a talk show, but because of the specific gritty texture he helped give to a story that the world was finally ready to hear. But as the film moved toward the light, a darker name began to dominate the digital conversation. The Epstein viral surge. Why now? The resurrection of Jeffrey Epstein's name in 2026 is not a coincidence of nostalgia, but the result of a deliberate, legislative battering ram that has finally breached the gates of federal secrecy. For years, the public was fed a diet of redacted memos and closed-case narratives, but the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act in late 2025 changed the fundamental chemistry of the conversation. Today, Epstein is going viral not because of news stories, but because of a massive 3.5 million-page digital library released by the Department of Justice, a data dump so vast it has turned every social media user into a self-appointed digital forensic investigator. This surge is being driven by the brutal reality of the January 30th, 2026 release, which saw over 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images uploaded to the FBI's public record vault. This wasn't a curated press release, it was a raw, chaotic look into the Sentinel case management system. Within hours, the internet was flooded with unredacted snippets that the DOJ has struggled to police. The sheer volume of material, ranging from 2007 draft indictments that were never served to flight logs that include billionaires and former heads of state, has created a permanent state of digital discovery. We are seeing a world where the client list is no longer a mythological document, but a scattered reality hidden across 300 gigabytes of data. Furthermore, the 2026 hearings led by Attorney General Pam Bondi have kept the fire burning. The spectacle of a House Judiciary Committee hearing where Bondi sparred with lawmakers over the handling of these files has turned a legal process into a prime-time drama. When Bondi mentions pending investigations while facing subpoenas for unredacted records, she validates the public's suspicion that the Epstein story is far from over. This political friction acts as a multiplier for the viral effect. Every time a politician is accused of a cover-up or a survivor's name is accidentally leaked in a poorly redacted PDF, the algorithm pushes Epstein back to the top of the feed, ensuring that the ghost of Little St. James remains the most relevant figure in modern discourse. The timing also aligns with a broader collapse in institutional trust. In an era where the public feels that wealth and influence can distort the legal system, the Epstein case serves as the ultimate Exhibit A. The viral nature of the 2026 disclosures is fueled by a desperate desire for a smoking gun that links the elite to the grim trade portrayed in films like Sound of Freedom. Because the files contain emails from figures as prominent as Elon Musk and Bill Gates, even if those emails are logistical or dismissive, the mere proximity to Epstein's orbit is enough to trigger a digital firestorm. The public is no longer waiting for a verdict. They are conducting the trial in real time, one downloaded document at a time. This 2026 surge represents a shift from conspiracy to audit. The viral threads are no longer just speculation about secret cults. They are line-by-line analyses of FBI interview notes and financial fan charts. As more people realize that investigators knew about Epstein's danger as early as 2006, yet allowed him to walk with a state charge, the anger is renewed for a new generation. When cinema met the dossier. The convergence of Sound of Freedom and the Jeffrey Epstein dossier is not a matter of shared production staff, but of a shared psychological landscape. To the public, the film acted as a visual decryption of the redacted names found in the Epstein flight logs. This intersection was solidified by the presence of Jim Caviezel, whose portrayal of Tim Ballard became inseparable from his real-world rhetoric. Caviezel, a longtime collaborator of Mel Gibson, began to speak of the storm and the Great Awakening, terms that acted as a bridge between the cinematic struggle of the film and the legislative struggle to unseal the 2026 Epstein records. This created a feedback loop. Every time a new document was released from the Epstein estate, the film's streaming numbers surged, as if audiences were using the movie as a training manual for the reality they were discovering online. This connection is anchored in the adrenochrome narrative, a controversial and widely debated theory that Caviezel himself brought into the mainstream during the film's promotional tour. By suggesting that the trafficking networks depicted in the movie were merely the service providers for a much darker, elite-level exploitation ring, Caviezel linked the fictionalized villains of the Colombian jungle to the very real names appearing in the unredacted 2026 DOJ files. For the audience, the film was no longer just a story about a federal agent, it was a metaphorical window into the black sites of the global elite. When Gibson's name was added to this mix, the narrative transformed from a movie promotion into what many perceived as a whistleblowing operation disguised as entertainment. The physical locations mentioned in the 2026 Epstein disclosures, ranging from the Caribbean to remote European estates, often mirrored the fortress locations seen in the film's climax. This visual symmetry was not lost on digital investigators. As drone footage of the reconstructed Little St. James Island began to leak in early 2026, social media users began side-by-side comparisons with the cinematography of Sound of Freedom. The film provided a vocabulary for the horrors that the legal documents could only describe in dry, clinical prose. It gave a face to the victims and a silhouette to the faceless, billionaire patrons who had previously been protected by non-disclosure agreements and high-priced legal teams. The intersection of these two worlds represents a shift in how the public processes high-level crime. In the past, a movie was a movie, and a court case was a court case. But in the mid-2020s, the Gibson-Epstein nexus proved that the public now demands a narrative framework to understand complex institutional failures. The movie provided the emotional truth, while the 2026 document releases provided the evidentiary truth. Together, they formed a singular cultural event that bypassed traditional media gatekeepers, creating a reality where the credits of the film never truly finished rolling, but instead bled directly into the headlines of the morning news. To understand the weight of these allegations, one must look at the physical locations where these two worlds supposedly met. The island and the screen. The visual shorthand of Sound of Freedom relies heavily on the concept of the impenetrable fortress, a secluded tropical location where the laws of sovereign nations are replaced by the whims of the wealthy. While the film's climax takes place in the dense jungles of Colombia, the imagery of a high-security island compound became the primary point of comparison for audiences tracking the 2025 to 2026 releases from the House Oversight Committee. In December 2025, when Representative Robert Garcia and the committee released never-before-seen photographs and drone footage of Little St. James, the public did not just see a luxury estate, they saw a physical mirror of the trafficking infrastructure they had witnessed on the big screen. The almost true nature of the narrative is most unsettling when comparing the set design of the film to the clinical reality of the Epstein photographs. The Oversight Committee's release included high-resolution images of a room containing a dentist's chair, a bizarre, sterile addition to a vacation home that immediately triggered viral comparisons to the makeshift medical facilities shown in trafficking thrillers. Surrounding this chair were 12 orange-hued masks of men's faces, a detail so surreal it felt like a discarded prop from a Gibson-directed horror film. These images provided a visceral confirmation for the audience. The villain's lair was not a Hollywood invention, but a documented architectural reality in the US Virgin Islands. This comparison was further fueled by the chalkboard documents released in the same 2025 batch. One photograph showed a blackboard inside an Epstein office with the words "power, deception," and "intellectual" scrawled in chalk. To the digital investigator, this was the script of the real-world antagonist. The public began to overlay the dialogue from Sound of Freedom, specifically the chilling line about children being a product that can be sold multiple times, onto the cold, financial reality of the Epstein files. The film provided the emotional framework to process the 95,000 pages of estate documents, transforming dry bank records from JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank into the blood money of a cinematic narrative. The infrastructure of the island itself, the temple on the hill, the helipad, and the labyrinthine guest houses, functioned as the ultimate set piece for a story that has no ending. By February 2026, drone footage of the rocky shoreline and the secluded dock area became the most watched content in the disclosure community. These weren't just scenic shots, they were being analyzed for extraction points and holding areas, mirroring the tactical planning scenes where Jim Caviezel's character maps out a rescue. The line between a 2023 action movie and 2026 forensic evidence has effectively vanished, leaving the public to navigate a world where the most horrific scenes of a movie are routinely outmatched by the morning's document dump. Beyond the visuals, the true conflict lies in the silence of those who remain protected by the redaction pen. The 2026 disclosure era. As of early 2026, the mystery surrounding Jeffrey Epstein has shifted from the realm of digital speculation into a massive, state-sanctioned evidentiary record. The passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act in late 2025 forced the Department of Justice to undergo the largest declassification event in its history. Like mentioned earlier, on January 30, 2026, the DOJ published what it called its final production, a staggering 3.5 million pages of core documents, over 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
Harvested from decades of FBI investigations, grand jury transcripts, and the seized contents of Epstein's Manhattan and Caribbean estates. The 2026 files have confirmed that Epstein was not merely a lone predator, but the central hub of a global elite network that bypassed traditional legal boundaries. We now know, through unredacted emails and flight logs, that for years after his 2008 conviction as a sexual offender, Epstein maintained an active and influential role among Silicon Valley's billionaire class and international political circles. The files detail pariah club dinners and advisory roles, where Epstein guided some of the world's most powerful men on tax strategies and image rehabilitation. Perhaps most chilling are the draft indictments from 2007, now public, which show that federal agents had prepared to charge not just Epstein, but 3 of his personal assistants with child exploitation trafficking nearly 2 decades before the public saw a single trial. A massive failure in the DOJ's redaction process, described by survivor attorneys as a profound disregard for safety, resulted in the accidental exposure of thousands of victims' names and addresses. While the names of powerful enablers like Leslie Wexner were often blacked out in the initial waves, the identities of minors were left visible in keyword searches. This has triggered a secondary crisis, a legal battle between survivors and the government over the reckless nature of the release. Despite the millions of pages, over 50% of the total investigative file remains withheld under the guise of national security, ensuring that while we know more than ever, the deepest layers of the operation remain shielded by the very institutions tasked with exposing them. The long-term effect. The legacy of the Epstein case, and its cultural mirroring in films like Sound of Freedom, has fundamentally altered the DNA of power in Hollywood and beyond. We are entering an era defined by the Epstein touch, a toxic association that can retroactively dismantle a career or a legacy through the discovery of a single flight log entry or a leaked email. In the world of high-level brokerage, proximity has become the new crime. The 2026 disclosures have forced a total recalibration of the elite privilege apparatus, where the informal social networks that once allowed billionaires and politicians to operate with immunity are now viewed as potential crime scenes. In Hollywood, the Gibson-style independent movement has capitalized on this shift. The success of movies that tackle taboo elite corruption has proven that there is a massive, underserved market for narratives that challenge the studio system's silence. The long-term effect is a fragmentation of the industry. Major studios, fearful of being named in future document dumps, are becoming increasingly risk-averse, while independent creators are using disclosure as a marketing tool. The Epstein saga has effectively killed the untouchable celebrity archetype, replacing it with a culture of permanent suspicion, where every vacation photo or charity gala is scrutinized for a connection to the Black Book. Beyond the screen, the Epstein effect has triggered a global accountability earthquake. From the Philippines to Slovakia, officials are being forced to resign as their digital correspondence with Epstein's team surfaces in the 2026 DOJ database. The sweetheart deals that once protected men like Epstein are now legislatively radioactive, leading to a wave of Epstein laws that limit prosecutorial discretion in cases involving human trafficking. We are seeing a structural shift where transparency is no longer a choice made by the powerful, but a condition forced upon them by a digital public that has learned how to weaponize data. The Epstein case proved that the world's most guarded secrets can eventually become public property if the pressure is sustained long enough. To stay updated on the stories the mainstream leaves in the shadows, be sure to subscribe for more.